So hi, welcome everyone. I hope everyone can hear me and I'm unmuted and still, a year into Zoom, still getting used to all this. Thank you, Gina and ladies, for that amazing lightning round. I think there was no shortage of energy on that panel, and there's certainly no shortage of opportunities for entrepreneurs to enter the cannabis industry, both here in Illinois and in the 36 other states. And I would be remiss if I didn't say part of your education is to check your rules and regulations, both at the state level and the local level. And I think that's a really great segue into our next speaker that we have on our agenda this morning. We are super excited to get to know Danielle Perry, and it is my great honor to introduce her to Illinois Women in Cannabis's industry. So she is our first Cannabis Regulations Oversight Officer, and a position we colloquially like to call the Illinois Cannabis Czar. It's a way cooler title. But Danielle works with 13 different agencies to direct the regulation and taxation of Illinois' cannabis industry. And Danielle's top priority for the office is to ensure that Illinois reaches its social equity goals of expungements, community reinvestment, and diversifying the industry. And I got to say, Danielle was appointed last August by Governor Pritzker, and I didn't really know a lot about her. And I think it's a safe assumption to say a lot of people didn't really know a lot about Danielle. And when I started doing some digging for this introduction, the pieces kind of really came together about Danielle's really unique background that makes her really perfect for this job. So I'm going to tell you why. So prior to her work with Illinois, she was the executive director for Growing Home. It's an organization based in Englewood that runs an agricultural job training program. And it's a pretty amazing program. It's a 14-week paid job training program that combines an emotional resilience curriculum with hands-on experience at Growing Home's farm, which happens to be a USDA organic approved urban farm. And part of Growing Home's programming, Danielle partnered with community organizations to assist people with criminal expungements. Before Growing Home, Danielle served as communications and outreach director for the city of Chicago, where she was engaging citizens about police accountability and government efficiencies, and was a member of Mayor Lori Lightfoot's transition committee. And not to be outdone by that, Danielle served as special advisor to the Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights for the USDA in the Obama administration, where she led a national community and school garden initiative in food insecure communities. In her role there, Danielle managed the community garden initiative and installed over 60 gardens throughout the country in underserved communities. And I'm guessing she got to work with the cooler Obama, Michelle, in that role. Danielle received both her bachelor and her law degree from Howard University. She grew up on Chicago's South Side and now lives in Downers Grove. And I think we can all agree Danielle has had a lot to do in the short time that she has been in her current role. And we're super honored to have her with us today. So I'm going to get out of the way and head it off to you, Danielle. So welcome.
Thank you, Carrie, for the introduction. You don't really need me to say much now. You told my story, but I appreciate it, and I appreciate the invitation just to be here with you guys today and to have the opportunity to just share a little bit more about what our office has been doing and what we want to do. It's really a great opportunity for me, so I'm grateful for the chance to be here with you guys today and to be your keynote speaker. So I couldn't really start or start anything about cannabis without acknowledging the fact that there are a number of women who came before me, whose shoulders I stand on. Names you recognize and some you don't. Kelly Cassidy, Heather Staines, Jahan Gordon Booth, Toy Hutchinson, and Kim Fox, Juliana Stratton, Dina Roman, Khadijah Tribble, Donna Bracy, and Erica Lindsay. I know you recognize the first few names. Some people colloquially call them the marijuana moms, but there are names that you may not recognize. And those include a diversity, equity, inclusion officer at an MSO, the engineer and construction manager for the largest cultivation center in this state, one of the top regulators of cannabis in the state, a Black woman. Though you may not know their names, I'm proud to say that I stand on the shoulders of women, and especially women of color, who made days like this possible, who are the leaders in the legalization of cannabis in this state. And I'm very proud to be the Cannabis Regulation Oversight Officer. As Carrie said, I grew up here. It's nice to come back home. I went to Howard University in Washington, D.C. for both college and law school. I worked on the Hill for many years. And until I was appointed to work for President Obama in the Department of Agriculture, doing a number of things that were civil rights related, from working on policy and legislation to leading our limited English proficiency work in the office and throughout the department, but also running the community and school garden initiative around the country that Carrie spoke about. That was one of the most eye-opening times for me. Agriculture is all around us, but growing up in an urban setting like Chicago, you don't always think about it. And so that was my introduction to agriculture, and I ended up taking that on and moving back home to work for the city Inspector General, actually, around police accountability and reform. I went all throughout the city, meeting with community groups and going to town halls and learning about the things that community wanted to see around police reform, and brought that back to our office and helped the Inspector General's office to use that knowledge from community to make its plan on police reform and accountability. And then I moved to Growing Home that Carrie mentioned. I appreciate you telling the story of Growing Home. I couldn't turn it down. I had never been a nonprofit ED before, but Growing Home is so unique, right in the middle of Inglewood, a USDA certified organic farm that does workforce training, paid workforce training, I always say, for people mostly who were formerly incarcerated, giving them an opportunity to not just have someone look over their resume and help them find a job, but actually stick with them and work through some of the traumas and things they've been through, but give them hands-on work experience, learning how to grow their own food. While at Growing Home, I helped to shift our model to being an access point for food in the Inglewood community by building community partnerships and building relationships with people in Inglewood and leaders, people right on our block who didn't know about Growing Home. That was something I brought to the table, the ability to leverage getting to know folks, figuring out what they really want, and bringing their interests to our work so that Growing Home could be an access point, but also a resource for Inglewood. And so I was absolutely honored to get the call from the administration about joining and taking on cannabis as someone who's worked at the federal and local level in agriculture, and also worked in the communities that this legislation was supposed to help the most. And so I'm uniquely interested and passionate about all that cannabis can do in this state. Many people know or talk about the Cannabis Regulation Oversight Officer, but don't truly have an idea of what I'm responsible for. So really, Illinois is unique in the sense that other states have one commission or one agency that handles cannabis. We have 13 agencies that do something cannabis related. So my job is to work amongst those agencies and make it feel like one cannabis family. So when you have 13 agencies, everybody has their own missions and goals, and cannabis is just one thing they're working on. I'm responsible. So cannabis is my one thing, to bring those folks together, to find best practices, and also to talk about diversity and equity at every level and about everything we do. So most people know that I'm responsible for a disparity study, but don't often know what a disparity study actually is. A disparity study is a legal document that you use in court to explain the need or necessity for often race-based solutions to an industry that has a lot of disparities. And the first element of a disparity study is a market analysis, trying to understand what the industry looks like today and what the challenges are and where there are disparities. The second point, though, is an analysis or an overview of how successful a race-neutral approach to diversifying said industry was. And in our case, our legislation set out ways and opportunities for people to try to get into the industry that was not race specific. And so when the first licenses go out, we will be able to look at the market itself and then look at how successful our race neutral approach was, and then be able to create a narrowly tailored approach to continuing to diversify our industry. But until then, the law gives me one more responsibility that I'm really proud to be having moved forward. And that is, I am tasked with assessing the diversity of the industry. So one of the things I did within months of coming into this position was send a survey to all of the companies that participate in the cannabis industry in the state. And for anyone who's here, who's from one of the businesses in cannabis, I know you can tell them that you might have been expecting a 20-question survey about the diversity in your company, and I sent 900 questions. The survey will get better over the years, but the reason we did that was we wanted to create a baseline to understand diversity, not just, how many women, how many men, how many Black people are owners, but the intersectionality of it. How many Black women are owners? How many Asian women are minority owners? And not just how many employees do you have who are women, or how many employees do you have who are people of color, but how many people in the C-suite are people of color, not just frontline workers. So we ask questions about the ownership, board of directors, the vendors, employees at every level, and also your diversity, equity, and inclusion work. And finally, barriers to entry and capital. And I felt that by asking questions about all those things, it would help us to create policy recommendations on ways to diversify the industry. And I was right. We asked these questions at the end of last year. We've received responses. I look to put out this diversity report in the coming weeks. But I'll give you some spoilers. In some ways, we're more diverse than I thought, but in others, we have a lot more work to do. So because this is about women in cannabis, I'm going to give you some numbers about women. The traditional economy, just in this country, the percentage of women owners is about 21%. In this state, what we've seen is that there are about 19% majority owners who are women and 29% minority owners who are women. I think it's important to understand the percentage of ownership for women, and then also from an employment perspective. So we broke it down by, senior managers, middle managers, frontline workers, and executives. So for us senior managers in this state, 38% are women, and middle managers 31%, and frontline workers 32%. Executives nationally in the cannabis industry are usually around 36.8%, but in Illinois it's 27%. Now contrast this to the percentage of Black people who are majority owners is 1%. And Black people who are minority owners is 0%. So what does that tell us? It tells us, one, thinking of these numbers all together, I'm grateful for a governor who takes diversity seriously. I think that's why we have numbers for women in the 30s for middle and senior level management, and on par for the owners percentage, if not higher than the traditional economy, meaning other businesses. But it also means that we have a lot of work to do. We know that in Illinois, 49% of the people in this state are men and 51% are women. So we want to move our numbers closer so that it can be reflective of the people in this state. the real question is, how do we get there? And what are we committed to as a state to make it happen? I think often when people talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, they jump straight to recruitment. How can we recruit differently? But I'm a firm believer that you're skipping a few steps. When I worked for Obama and we did agricultural diversity inclusion work, we often talked about education being the first step. Educating people about the industry in which you want to serve and being honest about some of the stigmas that come along with these industries. And when it was about agriculture, just agriculture by itself, often I'd be the person in the room who would say, if you want to diversify the agriculture industry, you have to be honest about the fact that agriculture started in this country with the enslavement of Africans. And so we did this work for free. And so there will be a stigma around getting people of color to go into agriculture now, the descendants of those same enslaved Africans. Now you want us to join the agriculture industry, but you have to be honest about what's happened. And I think that's true about cannabis as well. We have to tell the whole story. We have to get out there and talk about what cannabis has done in our community. So right now, the story that I want to tell is that we have seen $30 million invested into our communities that need it most through the work of our amazing Lieutenant Governor. We have seen in a matter of 1 year, and for me, only a couple of months of being in this position, almost 500,000 arrest records expunged. That's powerful work. And we have to tell the story, not just about licensing, but about the whole thing. And the fact that that will continue. We will see more pardons and we will see more expungements. But we'll also have to be honest about the fact that cannabis and the criminalization and demonizing of our communities for folks doing this same drug, we have to be honest about what's happened, the war on drugs and the effects it's had in our communities. If we want people to now consider cannabis as an industry that they can succeed in, or if we want people to allow cannabis to come into their community. So education is first. And to me, the second thing that people often skip over before they get to recruitment is that we can make pipelines to diverse talent. It takes work though. We can advertise and work with community colleges and universities to create certification programs and build those out more. We can create incubators for people who typically don't have capital and opportunities to ownership. We can work with workforce development organizations and job training programs to help people get into these positions. We can make the pipeline for the talent we want to see. We have community members who need the jobs. We have community members who have the skills, but we have to create pipelines so they can come to us. And then we get to recruitment. Posting on Indeed and LinkedIn is never enough. We have to diversify. We have to be creative about how we go and seek out people coming in who are diverse. I'm a graduate of Howard University. I know that if I'm putting out a job posting, I'll send it to historically Black colleges and universities, alumni centers or their career services, because I want to make sure they see these postings. We can look at professional organizations who do the work we may be looking for. So if you're looking for someone in marketing or in business, there are minority organizations and affinity groups that work in those spaces. But not just recruitment is important, retaining these people are important as well. And you have to be creative. Just last night or this morning, I saw an article saying Sonoma was giving $10,000 for people to come and work the wineries and giving them housing stipends. And often when we talk about agriculture, we mention that a lot of the cultivation happens downstate or in more rural areas. How do we attract folks and get them to stay? Creating mentorship programs for people and partners and buddies, going out of your way to make sure they're comfortable and to make sure that culture at the company changes as you change who's in the company as well. And then around ownership, we have to create social equity programming that supports folks getting into this industry. and not just license holders for dispensaries and cultivation, but ancillary businesses as well. I know that that sounds like a lot. And I've said this before, and people often look at me and say, that's a lot of work. And often people are willing to do it when it's for a frontline worker, administrative staff. They don't mind looking for a Black woman to take over HR. But will you do that for your CEO? And will you do that for your COO? And are you willing to take those extra steps to diversify the workforce and also to create opportunities for people to get in this industry? Will philanthropy join us and help us? Because we know one of the greatest barriers to enter this industry is capital. Is not just capital, but being able to get into the industry and get your business going. So will philanthropy join us in our efforts to diversify the industry in the state, help us to create entrepreneurial programs and help people with the startup costs through grants? This is the work we have to do as a state and also as companies in cannabis to make this happen. And I think some people ask, is it worth it? Is it worth doing all that just to have a more diverse workforce? And the answer is yes. Think back to the list of names I said in the beginning. What did those women do when given the chance, when given the opportunity, when they knocked the door down? They did something unprecedented. They're history makers. What happens when you diversify your workforce? Unprecedented things happen. History is made. And so is it worth it? Absolutely. Why is it worth it? Look at us right now. We are having a discussion about how to make this industry more diverse, an industry that a few years ago didn't even exist. But for the work of 4 incredible legislators who happen to be women, we are here today. So it's absolutely worth it. And so I join you in the fight, not just to add women and people of color to the list of owners in this industry, but to get more C-suite professionals, to have more board membership, to see middle management and senior management grow, to have more investors and pipeline to investors, to see more people who look like me be regulators in this state as well, and vendors and advocates. We have so many women who are leaders in advocacy. Construction companies and security companies that work in cannabis. These are the things we want to see. And for me, until this happens, I will be here with you fighting until we get all the things that we know we deserve as a state in cannabis and as women in this industry and as people of color. We not only want a seat at the table, I'm pretty sure we can build a table. I'd like to see us be the builders, to have seats, and to also have bigger chunks of the pie. So for that, I thank you for your time. I look forward to continuing this work in cannabis with you. I'm excited for all that's going to come and all that has happened. Thank you again.
Wow, thank you, Danielle. I don't know if I can get my video on right now, but I hope you can hear me. And I can. Thank you, Danielle, so much. That was like, if I had a mic to drop right now, I'm dropping it, because it's your comments are exactly what I think we can all agree are needed in the state. And we are so proud that you are leading us there. I think the entire country is looking at Illinois as we've created this program. We've got all this social equity, criminal justice, community reinvestment, and they're all looking at us saying, can we figure this out? But so hearing your comments, I feel really good about the direction of this industry. And on behalf of Illinois Women in Cannabis, we'd love to be your partner to do what we can do to, plant the seeds, get the capital, get your business plans. I mean, that's kind of been the point of this conference, was to do exactly what you said. So we can't be more thrilled that the state is in agreement with what our goals are for this industry as well. So we really appreciate your time. We look forward to reading that report. And that's okay. We want that data. So if it's 900 questions, have at it. If we can create more opportunities within the cannabis industry, and as well as to support the cannabis industry, we are here to do what we can. So thank you very much for your time. I know you have a tight schedule today, so we appreciate your this morning. So thank you.